Well, my next guest spends a whole lot of his time up in the air. And I don't mean that he's a pilot or even a frequent flyer. In fact, probing the heights is kind of a family trait. The Flying Wallendas have been thrilling audiences with their aerial antics for more than 200 years. But it is this seventh-generation son who has taken on feats that were never imagined before. He just happens to hold 11 world records, and he is the only person on the planet who knows what it feels like to walk across the gaping mouth of an erupting volcano. Take a look at this.
Nik Wallenda. It's a story that begins many generations.
Seventh-generation way. There is no
and this is an epic international event.
This is history in the making.
The High Wire. It's a line that defines Nik Wallenda.
Wow, that's amazing, that roar, that crowd.
Spanning a storied family history, over 200 years and 7 generations.
All right, Chi-Town, let's do this, baby.
It's an incredible legacy that beckons as Nik Wallenda strives to honor the memory of those before him. With an equal sense of daring and fearlessness, making the name Nik Wallenda synonymous with the impossible.
You guys watching think I'm crazy, but this is what I was made for.
From the skyscrapers of Chicago to the mind-reeling chasm of the Grand Canyon.
This is really gonna happen. One wire, 25 stories above Times Square.
No one has ever tried to hang a wire in a setting as unpredictable as this one.
This volcano is one of the most active on the planet. It's currently erupting.
The sky is not the limit. It's the playground. The line stretches forward, and the record to beat is the one set by Wallenda himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Nik Wallenda. Nik, I think you're
not quite as hot as the volcano.
No, that's not bad at all. I think you're the craziest man I've ever interviewed in my life.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I've never introduced somebody and said, here's a real nutcase, but my gosh, walking over a volcano?
Yeah, you know, look, as you mentioned, over 200 years, 7 generations. I started walking a wire before my feet were on terra firma. My mom was actually 6 months pregnant with me and still walking the wire. So literally my entire life.
I mean, your family, I can't even imagine, but 200 years of tradition of this. Does ever there come along a Wallenda who says, I ain't doing this?
You know, occasionally. I mean, everybody tries it for sure. I have 3 children. I have a 22-year-old who is I'm so proud of him. He serves our country as a U.S. Marine.
Oh, God
I've got a 19-year-old in the U.S. Army.
Wow.
But their training on the wire definitely served them well because they've excelled very quickly in the military careers because of that. And really, it's all about the power of the mind. It's that internal dialogue. And that really is how we overcome the fear when we get on that wire every time we walk.
You have written this book called Facing Fear. If anybody on God's earth has the right stuff to write a book on facing fear, it's Nik Wallenda. Because, I mean, I can't even fathom when I'm watching this stuff, walking over Times Square. I mean, a mistake is the end of your life.
Yeah, that's right. It often can be. In fact, the reason why I wrote that book was because about 2 years ago, we were training to break our own world record.
Yeah.
We were walking on a wire about 30 feet above the ground, attempting to break a world record for the highest 4-level 8-person pyramid. And about halfway out on that wire, that pyramid collapsed, and my worst nightmare became a reality when 5 of my closest friends and family members fell to the ground. By the grace of God, I caught the wire and held on, and I thought I was fine. I got back on the wire the next day, in fact, and performed for 6 weeks straight as my sister was in the hospital recovering. She was in a coma, internal bleeding, didn't think she would live at first.
Oh, my goodness.
And I got back on the wire. And after that, I took a small break while my sister was recovering, and then got back on the wire for a contract that we had signed prior to that accident. And as I began training, I experienced this fear that I didn't know was a reality. In fact, if you asked me if fear was in my DNA, I would have said no prior to that.
Yeah.
But it became so debilitating that I remember going to my wife in New York City and saying, I'm done. I'm not getting back on the wire again. And really, the book is the story of what it took for me to overcome that, which was the greatest challenge of my career. It wasn't changing 2 laws in 2 countries over 100 years old. Had to change legislation in New York State just to get permission to walk across Niagara Falls, let alone the walk itself.
Well, I want you to know, I've told my wife I'm never walking that wire again either. I never did it the first time, and I'm never going to do it at all. But, you know, in your book, you talk about the fact that there are those moments in life when you're paralyzed by fear. Obviously, you were able to overcome it. What is the key thing to getting past fears? Because not everybody has the fear of walking on a wire.
Sure,
They're never going to
course.
get close to it. But they're afraid of other things.
That's right.
Yeah,
look, I really think it's controlling where we allow our mind to go. It's that internal dialogue. And if we can master our mind, I believe we can master anything in life. And that is one thing that we learned from a young age in our career, was to overcome those thoughts of telling you, hey, you're going to fall, and countering with positive thoughts of, hey, I've trained, I've walked on wires. In fact, in my training for the Grand Canyon, I walked on a wire with 120-mile-an-hour winds just to train for that walk. Therefore, when I was faced with 42-mile-an-hour gusts, 1,800, 1,500 feet above the canyon, my mind wants to go crazy, but I can say, no, don't freak out. You're in control. You've trained with 3 times this amount of wind. So really, it's about controlling that inner dialogue. And the book tells the story of how our family has done that for generations.
You know, I just have to wonder, are there moments you get out there and you look and you say, maybe I shouldn't do this today? Do you have those moments?
There are times where I get out there and I look and say, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, this is my career. This is what I do. This is my life. There's never a time where I've gotten out there. In fact, I get to such a point in my mind, I'm so determined, my mind is made up, that the only person that can stop me, whether there's lightning or a hailstorm, Chicago when I walked, it was hailing hours before that walk. My mind is made up. I'm going to walk that wire through hail. My dad is the only person. He's my head of safety and my head rigger. He oversees all of my safety. He's the only person that can actually step up and say, no, Nick, you're not going to get on that wire. You're going to wait. Other than that, I'm so determined I'm getting on the wire.
Wow. I'm going to tell you, I'm in awe of you. And I mean that with all my heart. The things that you have done, 11 world records, but it is incredible. And you've done the world a favor. This book is one everybody ought to get who's ever faced fears, and that's everybody. Because if you can face the fears of the things you've experienced and overcome them, then your advice is gold for everybody out there who reads it.
That was my heart behind that book. I wrote another book, Balance, which really told my career and the story of my life growing up in the business that I did. But after that accident, it was something that, in fact, that I felt like I had to do, was write this book to hopefully help others become free of the fear that's holding them back from their achievements.
You certainly are doing it. And you can get signed copies of Facing Fear, this wonderful book. And you can find Nick's other book, Balance, get his merchandise, videos, and a lot more at nikwallenda.com. Also, be sure to follow Nik Wallenda on social media. See what next stunt he's going to be doing. It'll be amazing.